It's Friday. It's happy hour. No matter where you are, myself and Emo Cowboy are joined by the one, the only John Daigle have established a run to draft in Ball Mania. This Fantasy Sanctuary Underdog Best Ball show. Let's get into it. That is right. Friday, Best Ball Happy Hour. John Daigle of Established a Run joining us, but we started this week with Rob Coakley of Spike Week on a Monday stream. And John, he wanted us to be very clear that he was the big attraction this week and you had big shoes to follow in. Do you have a response to that?
Coakley is a very good friend, and sure, they have a lot of good tools at Spike Week, by the way. My thing is I can't really talk shit on anyone. I love everyone, Tom. So no, not for me.
Well, let me be far more clear. Rob wanted us to make it very clear you were third fiddle this week, and just remember your place on the pecking order because one Rob King Coakley wants to let you know that he's up here and you're down here, brother.
That's very wrestling of him to shoot promo on me.
John, I know you've been a busy guy today, so you've been on an awful lot of shows already, but we've had breaking news just before we came on, so might as well start with a little tour talk. 4-year, $212 million deal. There's suggestions that it might not be close to that when it comes into the real stuff, but how do you feel about that contract on the surface?
I always worry about big contracts for quarterbacks, and each contract basically has to reset the market. So I get the money unless you are like the Giants who played Daniel Jones's contract as safe as they possibly could. It's not like they were betting on him since they framed it like a 2-year deal. And maybe that's what this is. Like $167 million guaranteed is a ton of money. But honestly, like for these kinds of things, we have to wait and peek behind the scenes, like Geno Smith as well, that they had essentially a player option baked in to the second year of his 3-year deal. We'll see how they framed this one. But I just compare him to Jared Goff, and I hate big money for those types of quarterbacks because, as good as Jared Goff seems now under Ben Johnson playing indoors a majority of the season in the Dome in Detroit, like remember, Sean McVay said, we can't win with this guy. And like, that's the only coach I can recall that actually made such a big move to make a trade for a quarterback like that, as opposed to settling for a number 1 overall pick. And that's kind of where Tua falls. It's more like settling. I get it. You can't just keep on throwing darts until you find the next Patrick Mahomes. That's not possible with having to sell tickets and merchandise and everything. Fan bases wouldn't be happy. But for those guys like that who have glaring weaknesses, like when Jared Goff gets under pressure, he is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Not even like league average, one of the worst. So like it's hard to build. You have to build a perfect team around him. That's the same for Tua. Whenever you're playing in those kind of situations, both under pressure and unfortunately outdoors, as we've seen in the playoffs so far, you just like that means he's literally one of the worst quarterbacks in the league in those situations. So I get it, and I'm very, very happy for him. He has generational wealth now for his family. That kind of culture as well is very family oriented. So that I'm sure is massive to him, and that's great. But whenever we're talking about like the performance of these players, those are the types I worry about when they get these big money, because it doesn't change much beyond that.
Yeah, I upset quite a few Dolphins fans today when I said on Twitter, this was before the contract, that if I was the Dolphins, I don't see any reason to sign to a long-term deal whilst Dak was unsigned. Like, why bother paying him? Yes, you're not going to pay him the same amount as Dak anyway. Why not wait? Why not see if Dak hits the open market? And it just feels, I don't know. I mean, Dolphin fans, the tour and on, they're all pretty hyped up about it. So good for them. They got their guy. But I've seen too many teams, too many fans get stuck in quarterback purgatory and just be quite happy with middling results. And maybe Mike McDaniels can get them over the hump, but we'll see. We'll see what they can do this year. Tyler, how did you feel about it? Does it change anything for you, best ball wise?
No, I mean last year's ridiculous narrative was that concussion meant he was undraftable. He was definitely going to get hurt again. But Kenny Pickett was fine because his concussions didn't count and didn't matter. And they were going to pay him. They're a team competing, but they're a team very, very much at their ceiling with quarterback. Daigle hit on it. He's a lot like Goff. He can do just fine and reach some really efficient high ceilings with the weapons at his disposal, with the right offensive coordinator running things. But at the end of the day, he's not elevating, especially when things are tough, things fall apart. And that's, when it really matters in the playoffs. So as far as like dynasty wise, if you were worried, will he be separated from Mike McDaniels? Will he still have these weapons? Like from that standpoint, I guess you get to feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy like with Goff, but from best ball, money doesn't change who he is as a quarterback. It certainly doesn't change what they can add to the offense. Like now they're going to have to do the Rams, Seahawks from years ago of like, you got to draft like you're right, and you got to get lucky and hit on those guys to really elevate this roster now with that much money allocated to Tua, with Tyreek, and with Waddle. So it's like these guys got to make do, and we've seen this kind of stall out. So at the end of the day, this doesn't really change anything except for, he's got the money locked up, and the Dolphins are kind of locked into this. And so any talk of like maybe they make a move for Dak, maybe they go draft a guy, like unless the structure is very team friendly and the initial details are coming out, this is their guy for the next 2-3 years.
I would have liked to seen McDaniel stretch it like Shanahan and say, I can make anyone work in this system, because I truly do think like if Mike White stepped in, maybe he's not as efficient over the middle of the field as Tua, but I bet the results are very comparable.
Yeah, from an aggressive standpoint, and like escaping pressure and stuff like that. Yeah, I agree. If I was Mike McDaniel, if I was the Dolphins, I'd be making moves to try to like buy some sort of flexibility, some sort of optionality, and not tie myself down. But at the same time, and because like we've seen this have like real limitations both in the regular season and in the playoffs against like really good defenses, just really good teams. And so it's like locking that down, you're kind of just settling. And I understand like the whole, you don't have Mahomes, you're already, behind in the 8 ball, but it's like, so be aggressive, take your shots. It's if you're having to like climb up the mountain, sacking it down with what's been holding you back isn't exactly going to get you to the top. So from like a real life football standpoint, I would say McDaniel, you've proved you can make like Tua year 1 looked like Goff year 1, just atrocious, and like wow, this was a mistake, to now like, oh my God, top 5 EPA numbers. So it's like we know the system works, and we know that you're a good coach, and we know the quarterback is limited. So I mean, like the Sean Payton kind of getting crap for drafting Bo Nix in the first round, but it's like he cut ties with the guy that was limiting the team and is taking a shot on a young new guy. And if that guy's not the guy in a year or two, you move on. And the Tua Goff contracts really limit your ability to do that without eating a ton of money.
Yep. So what we are in BBM tonight, we are picking up the 4 spot, which is a bit higher than we've been picking recently, Tyler. So that's nice. John, where do you want to go with this first pick? You're the guest. Best Ball Happy Hour. Kick us off.
Oh, these top 3 guys are all in the same tier. So I'll be political and say whichever one y'all prefer. The C's did part recently, given, we're thinking Jordan Addison's going to get suspended for a month. So Justin Jefferson definitely got a little sexier here as a top 5 pick. I don't have much of him because it's not like I was fading him, but I didn't consider him a top 5 option before this month. But now without T.J. Hawkinson, I am getting a little more excited to up my shares of Jefferson this next month of best ball.
How much does it change for you if Sam Darnold starts 8 games?
Oh, and I think we're looking at double-digit starts, honestly, for Sam Darnold. I'm kind of worried about when J.J. McCarthy will even get on the field, because I think Sam Darnold will be at least league average. And so I wouldn't say it worries me too much. I was more worried about Jordan Addison playing a full season, given his rates, his role last year, his production. It seemed like it was going to be a little, not that Jordan Addison was ever going to earn more targets than Justin freaking Jefferson, but it seemed like he could at least cut into that giant target tree. Because remember, like Jefferson, even his last 4 games when he was completely healthy, he played 5 games when he came back from injury, cut the first one out because he was still banged up, played only 70% of the snaps, I believe. Those last 4 games, he didn't have T.J. Hawkinson, but he also didn't have Kirk Cousins. And without Kirk Cousins, he averaged 4 fewer fantasy points per game. It was a big dip. And so I really worry with like Jordan Addison at full strength that maybe the target tree is expanded slightly more than we perceive.
Yeah. Before we crack on, though, got to get to a bit of housekeeping tonight. First off, if you want 1 BBM entry on us, all you've got to do is put the phrase #BDE into the chat at any point during this stream. That stands for Big Daigle Energy, Tyler informs me. And if that isn't enough for you, we're giving away another BBM entry after that. This is cold hard cash. So if you're in a place where you can't get into Underdog, we'll just PayPal you the cash. After the video ends, again, just put the hashtag BDE on this video as a comment, and we will send you that money by the end of the weekend if you win. And we're going to keep on giving away stuff all through the summer. We are getting closer and closer to 3,000 subscribers. But we need your help to do it. So if you want a chance to win even more cold hard cash, we are giving away $100 in cash, 12 months of access to all our premium products, and a $25 voucher for our merchandise store. All you have to do is comment on literally any video of ours between now and the day before the season starts. There's those details in big fat writing. So let me just reiterate again. All you've got to do is just simply subscribe, leave a comment on any video. Each comment you leave on any video will get you an entry into the draw for loads of good stuff. Let's get back to that, what is far more important though. So Rich in the chat says, any concerns from a stacking standpoint with Darnold starting the season? I'm all right with it because, you know, we can carry Justin Jefferson and look for more upside at quarterback elsewhere. Is that how you approach it, John, with one pick before us?
I've been tacking on JJ McCarthy and 3 QB builds. I don't know, though, if I should be more risk averse and do it in 2 QB builds, maybe even putting Sam Darnold in there. But I admittedly have more. Devontae Adams is good here. Let's see. With Justin Jefferson, I'm trying to think through it. Yeah, I don't mind Devontae Adams or Devonta Smith here. It's kind of where
Tyler?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with Adams. I think Smith might be in play in the 3rd round. We'll see what happens.
First, second round turn was probably a little too crazy for Devontae Adams, given his declining in points per game and yards per game the last 4 years in a row. Not to mention last year, even leading the league in target share, but still suffering as the wide receiver 18 in points per game because of his quarterback situation. I don't know if Gardner Minshew really makes a significant upgrade there, but if you can stack Adams with another elite wide receiver, that's kind of fun. Right, that's guaranteeing you.
Yeah, I'm looking at Adams as like kind of like a Mike Evans of the past, where it's like I don't feel great about his season-long output, but I know no matter who's throwing him the ball, he's got nuclear weeks that do break fantasy. And so if I can just jam him into teams and get him there, and so Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson starts, like those feel fun to try to get a guy that can go nuclear, but is likely to be just as volatile. And if Camp is any indication, Daigle, we're facing some running backs falling back to us, some receivers. What do you like in here?
Man, you can't ever let me have this pick because I right now I have 42% HN on Underdog. Like,
let's go.
I'm not even like flattening my exposure. I'm just getting as much as I humanly can.
I like it. I mean, especially in our build specifically, we don't take either of Tyreek or Waddle. So HN feels like nice direct leverage off of those guys, and his profile screams guy we want to be in on and guy that similarly can break fantasy, great team. Yes. And if we're this low on Tua and the fantasy playoffs happen in the elements, in the cold, well, it just sounds like a lot of handing off and short screens to a guy that looks like our generation's Tony Pollard before the fibula fracture.
I love ceilings where they can still grow in volume, and we don't know like how much more HN can do, but maybe he does increase on his 15 touches per game. Maybe even stays healthier for a full season. We just don't know. But even if he's not, he's already shown us he's Will Fuller running back, and that's okay. Will Fuller running back still breaks fantasy football. He still wins weeks. So of course I want HN in the 3rd round. Also, that's a range where I will take Saquon Barkley too. Like if Barkley was there and HN was off the board, I am on the bandwagon of fading Barkley, around the beginning of the 2nd round. When we start talking the 3rd, though, the projectable volume is just too high. It's just too good. So I don't hate players. I hate ADPs. 3rd round, totally acceptable for Barkley.
You heard it here first, folks, on Happy Hour. I know Tom has like housekeeping he has to get to, but I got to fire this off. Tom, you and I both heard Daigle say that just because he's small doesn't mean he can't be a grower and really surprise everybody this season.
There you go.
Well, on that note, crack open another beer. But John, I just wanted to go back to Devontae Adams. Coach Speak Index was talking this week about how a lot of the stuff coming out of camp makes him think it's going to be Aiden O'Connell who ends up starting games to start the year. Like, how much do you really care whether it's Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew, or is it just pretty much the same kind of thing?
Aiden O'Connell was so fun last preseason, but then really didn't show much of anything in either direction, honestly, last regular season. And it's because of the way the Raiders offense was set up. Like, they trailed for the league's fourth fewest plays from week 9 on under Antonio Pierce. And because they had those leads all the time, that allowed them to just run the ball as much as possible. So we don't know what this offense looks like when they trail. And most likely, although I think they do have a really good defense, and they were fantasy's #1 defense under Antonio Pierce to close the year last season, what happens when they get behind? That's the question I keep asking, because, building that, having those leads are not sustainable, especially with this kind of offense. So I think personally, maybe just because I've seen it, so I have the evidence. We know Gardner Minshew, he elevated Michael Pittman to wide receiver 2 status. I think I'd prefer him under center, but maybe O'Connell does have like some ceiling to uncork, as he showed in the preseason last year and leading the league in depth of target.
Yeah, I was going to say the thing about him, and I'll say it real quick. We're looking at ETN, Kirk, Lamar, Andrew still on the board. What are we liking here at this turn, Daigle?
I kind of think, do we like trying to set up Lamar and Andrews here?
Tom loves doing that.
I mean, it's been a little while since we've done any.
Do we think we're safer with Lamar or Andrews first? Because McBride's on the board.
It's Andrews.
Okay, cool. Good.
Gives us more optionality, doesn't it?
And honestly, if we don't get Lamar, we still have Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
it's much harder to backdoor stack Lamar Jackson. I'm probably going to have a lot more Isaiah likely than I even want, just because of trying to set up Lamar and Andrews and going Lamar first.
Yeah, but back on your AOC comment, yeah, I mean, I remember when they first signed Minshew. Like, you look at them both analytically, pretty similar in turnover rate, pretty similar in efficiency, both very poor to middling at best. But it does seem that AOC typically gives more deep chances than Minshew, and that's really where Adams still thrived, was like getting open deep and still torching dudes. And so, like, if he only catches 2 passes, but they're both 2 long touchdowns, that's better for best ball. So I do agree there that I think slightly into AOC. I just won't be surprised when it's kind of just AOC gets the chance to start, Minshew mixes in, but same thing with the Pittsburgh guys. I just won't be surprised if they're kind of, it's a musical chairs all season long. Depending on like how game scripts are going and how guys are feeling going into it, or any hot hand they think they're riding from practice, stuff like that.
It's just going to be a very volatile situation. I mean, you could say the same for the Steelers. So Lamar comes back, easy auto pick for me.
What a fun team. This team is awesome.
Hey, last year, we've already got week 17, 2023 cooking. This is fantastic.
Also, I've been factoring in, I was going to ask y'all, how do y'all feel about the week 15, week 16 correlation? Because I've been given the flatter payout structure, week 16, arguably this is an overzet thing, as important as week 17. So I've been building that into like all my teams.
I'll push back on just as important. I think week 15 does not matter. If we look at like the flatter payouts are good, but just getting to the finals is just, if you won 50 max, you're getting your money back. So for expected value, unless you really value breaking even at worst, and I guess the truest gamblers are like, that's a win. I still value like week 17 much more important, because getting there does not, like, you're not getting a payout that really helps you out from a max standpoint. Entries.
Well, this is something that we kind of talked about in our Discord yesterday. If you want to be in there, hit the join button below. You get my best ball rankings, Rich's dynasty rankings, and a lot more. But we were sort of saying, I'm not interested in those first round payouts of best ball. Like, for me, take that money and put it into the second round of the playoffs. Take that money and put it into the finals, because I mean, we all know, like, if you've got 150 teams, when you get to that first round, you might end up with 30, 35 teams if you've had a good year. And it's okay, it's great when you hit those min cashes of consolation prizes, you get wiped out down to about 5 teams. But I'd much rather that the money was bigger further on for those teams that I really believed in. So, I mean, I definitely think there's something in building for the playoffs, and there's nice little streaks that you can hit in combinations, like the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chiefs kind of all interlink a bit and stuff because of the way that the Christmas games are going on.
Yeah, I think week 16 helps, but I don't think it's more important if you value like true ROI final hit. You still want to get I think vaulting into the top 100 matters more than it ever did. So getting there helps, but it's still a 539 seat final with the first 100 or whatever getting just 150 max back.
Yeah, but I mean, there's definitely a conversation to be had as well around advancing through those playoffs because I can't remember what is BBM 1 of 16 at one point this year, or is it still 1 of 12?
Yeah, we're talking contest structure. Let's go ahead. Yeah, it's 2 of 12, 1 of 13, and then the final round in week 16 is 1 of 16.
So, I mean, but building for that week 16 feels definitely worth doing because 1 of 16, when you're talking about 16 other super teams, where the ownership levels are going to be incredibly high, is going to be incredibly difficult. So, I definitely land on week 16 being important. I had Dwayne McFarland on for a DraftKings draft last week, and he was asking whether it's something I'd do on DraftKings, and there with it being 2 of 12, 1 of 12, 1 of 12, I don't see the point because I think it's a lot easier. But once you start,
I only do it on Underdog, not even an Underdog. I only do it in BBM.
Yeah,
and that's kind of I have a lot more. I wouldn't be able to max BBM unless I do slow drafts. So that's why also I do slow drafts, and then that's also easy for me to parse week 16 because live it's hard to think of that stuff on the spot. I did a show with Davis yesterday on his YouTube channel, and discussing that shit live, it was just it even hurt my brain. I was like, man, I'm so used to slow drafts.
That's so funny. Anything catching your eyes? We're coming up. Looks like Rome, Nuke, Watson, Deontay, Ladd, Brian. All right, we're on the clock. Deontay goes.
I was going to say Deontay.
I say Odunze or Watson will be fine with me. Again, thinking through those last couple of weeks. I know Green Bay, Chicago, Vikings. We have Jefferson.
Yeah, well, let's go Watson for the week 17. Let's go Watson for the week 17. I think that makes sense.
Cool. I like it.
And I do like Odunze. I've taken a lot of him. But yeah,
I've noticed he's been falling just a little bit, and I think maybe his projections start to go, ooh, rookie quarterback, 3 really good, healthy receivers. How's this going to shake out? And so I'm willing to kind of take. It looks like Watson's been on a slow rise the last 2 months. Rome's been on a slight fall, so I'm just willing to kind of shift that around personally for my portfolio.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm drinking since it's happy hour. I ran out. I forgot we ran out of beer, so I don't have beer. But I do have the whiskey I got at the SFB Live Chicago round.
Nice.
Sherry Cask 101 proof cigar barrel. So yeah, that's what we're drinking right now.
So one pick away, we got Lamar, Devon Achan, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, and Mark Andrews. Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Keon Coleman, Jordan Addison. It's really the question mark zone at wide receiver. Or we could take David Montgomery, one of these running backs, even down like Najee Harris, James Conner territory. John, with 9 seconds, what do you fancy?
I think Jalen Warner, Najee Harris fit this. I don't know. How do you feel, Tyler?
I think I lean Harris a little bit. Here, but yeah, good pulling up the running back. Something we discussed last week. It's like, hey, if these guys are all kind of similar tier, you should be willing to mix them in as far as just uniqueness and who's coming back around. And with folks starting to realize, oh, Arthur Smith is in charge of this offense, we might see a lot of heavy tight end sets. That both running backs should benefit from that. But I think it's pretty clear they want to play like bully ball power running. And we've seen Arthur Smith and Tomlin kind of show stubbornness mentally with who they use for that. So I like mixing in Najee, especially as like a little. I know our fellow sickos are huge Jalen Warren fans, and so thinking through a Week 17 lens of half the finals, the last few BBMs have been filled with the sickos that are building the most optimally, correlating the most, and so one little uniqueness lever we can pull is taking the running back they like less in the same situation.
And I find myself making this pick a lot in the 7th or 8th round just because I'm overweight Chiefs stacks this year. Like Chiefs passing game is going to be, a hot opinion to be all in on Patrick Mahomes. But because I have that, then the week 17 correlation, I always find myself grabbing like one of Warren or Najee, and I don't know which one will pop. I bet it's going to be a headache in redraft, honestly. Start sit decisions, I'm not sure, unless both get their weekly, which is also possible in that offense, given their offensive line upgrades this offseason. But I'm always going around there, and that's because in order to get, and I know you agree with me on this, Tyler, in order to get those elite players like Patrick Mahomes and then stack him on the end, including Travis Kelce, you have to ignore George Pickens. Like it's not possible to get all those guys because Pickens is a 4th round pick. And so although I agree with everyone, Pickens rates increased like violently without Deontay Johnson on the field last year. I believe he's a very good player who could break out too. I can't do it in the 4th round because again, Tom, you're circling like the board here. Look at those guys that go in the same round at other positions. Look at Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Like I make those bets 10 out of 10 times over George Pickens. And like, if Pickens beats me because I go those guys instead, screw it. Like that's on me.
Yeah. Like if Pickens had, I don't know, say Kirk Cousins at quarterback, that would be a completely different conversation. And the faith I would
Evan
have
O'Connell at coach too, or at OC too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it could be so different, but there's just not enough. I mean, Arthur Smith, wide receivers had never had more than what, like 115 targets or something in a year. I can't
London
remember.
had yet to eclipse 110, I believe, 2 years in a row.
Yeah. So we're a couple of picks away. We don't need to get to it quite yet. LaMichael's saying, does Najee contract stuff bother you? Not really. I mean, contract years can swing either way.
Yeah.
You know, yes, he could be pushed to the bench a bit more, or he could end up being given even more work because of it, but I'm good with it. So what do we like here, John?
I'm a Josh Palmer guy. I don't know how y'all feel about Josh Palmer.
I think Josh Palmer makes sense here because we've only got 3 wide receivers and we're in the 8th round. So I'm definitely fine with that.
All his rates last year with both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams off the field. I understand we're dealing with an entirely different offense, given that Greg Roman with the Ravens literally led the league in run play rate from a neutral game script. But like Josh Palmer's rates increased to 24% target per route run rate and 1.6 yards per route run with both Allen and Williams off the field. You know, we're not even sure Ladd McConkey's going to play in 2 wide sets. And that means his competition then is DJ Chark. So really all he's doing is battling volume. But I really think similar to Cortland Sutton, Josh Palmer could just dominate targets on this offense.
Yeah, there was Greg Roman got up at the podium yesterday for the first time in a while and talked pretty much quite a bit about Josh Palmer and was saying how much he loved him when he was in college and how he wanted the Ravens to draft him when he was coming out. So like, yes, I get it's Greg Roman. I get it's Josh Palmer, but on a team which, still has Justin Herbert, I'm completely fine with it. So yeah, I think that's a good pick there, particularly when we only had the 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, I've actually been stumbling into a lot more strong 6 wide receiver or 7 wide receiver teams lately, but this one's definitely going to be 8 for sure.
Most likely,
So wide receivers kind of dried up here, apart from Tyler Lockett, Rashid Shaheed. You know, it gets a bit further down, but there's most.
You also, I can't, man, Shaheed. I probably need to back off a little bit, honestly, because I have so much of him, but I get so excited about Rashid Shaheed just because finally playing in 2 wide receiver sets in 10 career games where he's run around in over 80% of the snaps. He's averaged an 18% target share and 12.5 points per game, which is wide receiver 2 territory. And he's going at pick 100 overall. Shaheed is good. He's really good.
Tyler's highlighting Devontae Adams on screen there, and that was about to be the point I was going to make. Week 17 correlation.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of that. I just like Shaheed so much. Oh, and you know what? That's what happens is that when you're at the 1st, 2nd round turn, you don't get Adams, but you can hedge with Jacoby Myers, who goes so late. And so what I always end up doing, just stacking those guys back to back, Myers and Shaheed. So that's another reason why I'm just going to be overweight on Shaheed.
Yeah. Tyler, halfway through the draft, recap it for our audio listeners. And if you are watching on YouTube and want to listen on audio, all good podcast platforms, but specifically YouTube Music gets our content as podcasts far earlier than anywhere else.
All right, we have a Lamar Jackson, Devon Achane, Najee Harris, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Josh Palmer, Rashid Shaheed, and Mark Andrews team. This is very fun. Some nice, very unique, different types of pairings, at least for my portfolio a little bit. And yeah, I love Shaheed looking like Shaheed getting, talked about it. Like the meme is, this is Marquez Callaway all over again. And like, you look at their stats back to back and their size and all that stuff, and it is scarily similar. I think the difference is that Shaheed's kind of done it in worse conditions and in a more unlikely way with like having to climb the depth chart. And like you mentioned, he's now established himself as the 2 in this team. Olave, while being very good and someone we like a lot, isn't like a true alpha in like he's more of a deep threat and like receptions guy, but he doesn't have like a big red zone profile, and they're going to have to lean on guys like Taysom and Jawan to get there. But Rashid Shaheed is like literally what we want in best ball, a guy who just like anytime he gets the ball, he is a threat to score because of the depth of his target and how efficient he is. And they're already, Clint Kubiak bringing in more motion. Carmichael offense last year, atrociously boring and lacking any sort of answers early for a limited Carr, who, similar to Goff and Tua, do not handle pressure very well, especially like Goff. So now you get like motion, you get like clear wide receiver number 2 from like routes running and receptions. And Olave is very good, but this offense could just run through them because the running backs seemingly look dusty and potentially hurt, unavailable, and bad.
Yeah. Like Olave, you can't really be overweight on him because he goes early second round. It's like if you're in the back of the second, you probably don't have a chance at him. So I can't say like always draft Olave, but I can say always draft Shaheed because it's a player who can pop and he is readily available in the 9th, 10th round for you.
Yeah, so we're a couple of picks away. Like, I mean, this scenario of draft where like now we're kind of back on track with wide receiver, we've got 1, 2, 5, 1. We can kind of go in a bunch of different directions. We've missed the boat on Jordan Love to stack him with Christian Watson, but I don't know if we necessarily needed him. We could always look
I'm such a firm. I don't have many stances. Like I'm open to correlation and just like, yeah, screw it, hold my nose, and that matches. But I'm really firm. And if you draft one of these like top 8 guys early, you just stick to 2 quarterbacks and you make your bet. And like if it doesn't get there, screw it, because like that's the volatile game we're playing. When we're trying to win millions and beat out 100,000 other people. Like there's no time to hedge this shit.
Absolutely agree. We're on the clock. Who are we liking here? Running back, receiver? What are we thinking?
I'd be good with Wicks to build out a bit more correlation on that week 17
I'm cool with
bet.
I'm cool with Wicks. Just because I would say the Titans running backs and as we mentioned earlier, the Steelers running backs. I kind of think that's how the Packers wide receivers are, where they have ceilings, but identifying those ceilings week to week is probably going to be so annoying.
Well,
Romeo, I mean, Dobbs included.
It's all been confirmed. Like since February, the coaching staff has said, we like who we have in this room. We like how they stack up. We like that they all have unique ways they win and builds and skills. And we're going to rotate these guys. And we like to play matchup football and just attack defenses week to week and half to half. And that tells me nightmare in redraft unless one of these guys just becomes an alpha. And that guy's most likely one of Watson or Reed, probably not both. And so, yeah, Wicks just looks good. And if he's just the matchup guy of the week, that just sounds like a guy I want to have on my roster as far as a, high attack offense and just get a piece of it.
Like right now, Jaden Reed is the one going the highest. And one of the coolest stats I've seen all offseason was from Rich Rebar. I didn't even catch it. Apparently, from Reeves, Jaden Reed was on the field for only 4 routes and 2 wide receivers.
We've got 5 seconds left, John.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
Zeke, Charbonnet.
You can go Sharp. He's at the top. That's fine.
Yeah,
I would have said Ford, but also I know one, Ford's ADP is probably dipping right now given the Chubb news, and 2, I understand people don't like Ford. I get it. I still think he has a longer run out for a ceiling than other people. So, but I think I'm on an island.
Sorry, John. Get back to that stat because I've heard that one before, and it's an absolute cracker, which more people need to hear.
Go ahead.
Like Khalil Shakur that I wrote to establish the run has only run 24 career routes. Only 4% of his routes have come in 2 wide sets, which is very, very concerning if you're drafting him early. Jaden Reed, per Rich Rebar at Sharp Football, only ran 4 routes from 2 wide sets last year. What an amazing stat. Like I had no idea he was like that exclusive to 3 wide receiver personnel.
My first thought when I read that though is I wonder how much different that or not that different that was for Amon-Ra's rookie year, where he
Sure.
kind of came out as someone that had to like hack it out of the slot guy, but injuries allowed him to kind of be utilized as like that like screen sweep, do it all gadget guy that people were like, that's very fluky. And so the bull case is that year 2 allows him to come in, build on that, and mix in more of that. The problem is Amon-Ra had a clear runway to do that with not a lot of other guys in the offense, even close to his talent. Whereas Reed legitimately does, like, the least talented guy might be Dobbs, the guy that the quarterback likes a lot. So it's like, he has to be that much better, and the staff has to be that much more confident to like use him. And they just might not, but he might. So like, I understand his price is taking a bet on second year evolve development as a player, as a usage guy.
Mm-hmm.
But this offense could just be stubborn. And if everybody's healthy, we're going to use them the way we want to use them with the personnel packages we want to use. And that could certainly be one way his price doesn't pay off if he doesn't hit big for the weeks that matter.
I think where I'm at right now is that I want Reed, but I can't responsibly get him. Christian Watson's pretty easy to get given his upside at ADP. Dontavian Wicks also pretty easy to get if we think we're expecting him to break out, earn some more routes. And Dobbs is kind of left over in Fitz builds because everyone's still somewhat sleeping on him. I still want Shaheed over Dobbs, but again, I will absolutely take him if he matches with my correlation.
It just comes down to an easy equation for me. Where Jaden Reed goes, there's lots of guys who I think are probably more valuable and better, or more valuable to their offense. You get to Christian Watson, that's the question mark territory starting to bleed in. And then you get to the guys like Wicks, the guys like Dobbs, and it's like, okay, what do I need structurally here? And that becomes the question for me so much more often. And particularly where Dobbs goes, like, and then I know it's a bit closer here on Underdog than it is on DraftKings, where I do most of my solo drafts. But yeah, by the time he gets to Wicks, that's like, I need a 5th or a 6th wide receiver, and he fits the bill of that for all the reasons Tyler said before about, you know, you want a guy who's explosive. We're a couple of picks away. The room's kind of been pretty normal, nothing too crazy. We kind of hit that dead spot in quarterbacks as things dry up a little bit. Shout out to T. Whelan, who just became a member. Hit the join button down below. Absolutely loads of worthwhile stuff.
And Daigle, you mentioned, it seems you and I are the only people that kind of like Ford. Leg up, absolutely shitting on Ford with Corain calling him potentially the worst pick on the board. Herbert and Williams go. We'll get back to that. Schultz is a bring back, and I'm not too worried about the bye weeks. What do you think?
I like Ty Chandler a lot.
I love Ty Chandler. That's
especially for our bill. I think he's a really good pick here.
Oh yeah, I mean, you don't have to threaten me with a good time. We've been drafting Ty Chandler pretty aggressively since we started.
Wait, why is Ford the worst pick on the board?
I was listening this morning, and yeah, that hurt. And I instantly wanted to start arguing with people that weren't in my kitchen this morning.
Sure, yeah, I do that all the time. I'm on mid run, and I'll find myself like talking to myself, and there are people around. It's like, oh god, I look so weird.
I did that last month, and I had to reevaluate a lot in my life, arguing with podcast people with no one else around. But yeah, apparently Chubb's coming back. Ford has showed us he couldn't be a league winner with everybody getting hurt. And my first response was, we got to make this pick, and then I'll get back to it. We've got Hawkinson that may miss half the season, but correlates with Jefferson in our Green Bay stuff. What are you thinking here?
I mean, if you're going to take Hawkinson,
I would still say McLaughlin or Kamani Vidal. But if y'all don't like them, that's okay. Pick someone.
I'm down for McLaughlin or Algier. Yeah,
that's cool. Algier's fine.
Algier's the most drafted running back in any of the 36 different streams we've done on this channel since drafts opened. So yeah,
I think he's definitely sharp. I think he's like cheaper Trey Benson, where I question his role until the starter, if the starter is injured. Except Benson probably has an easier path given James Conner's history, whereas I don't know about Bijan. I have no idea.
Okay, the Ford thing, real quick. Yes. So I guess Rich, be your own people. So saying he was terrible ignores the fact that, not too dissimilar from Kyron's rookie year, he started with a high ankle sprain, IR. That impacts your play from anywhere from minimum of 2, depending on severity, to upwards of 6 to 8 weeks of like physical limitation impacting an efficiency dip. And Ford started off with that injury in camp and had to play the rest of the season. So like, And Kyron was being called shitty when he came back his rookie year, and that's why he was underwhelmed because not a good prospect, and he looked terrible when he was on the field. Yeah, he dealt with an injury. So, like, not too dissimilar with what the Eckler Bulls are saying is like he had to play through a high ankle sprain behind a bad line. No wonder he looked bad. And it's like that those things are more valid for younger players, in my humble opinion, because like we've seen that sap. That's one reason why Cup might have dipped in efficiency more last year, dealing with a hamstring and an ankle sprain, both early in the year and then week 11 with the ankle sprain. So it's like, I don't think we've seen healthy Ford play to his full potential. I'm bearish on Chubb's ability to come back and like be a true efficiency back. And then I'd like to hear, Daigle, your thought on it, since you're kind of in on Ford, is that with Ken Dorsey and this talk about going to like a spread shotgun empty backfield, that sounds like Ford, who this Stefanski offense, no matter who is the OC, they have like this pass catching back. Like Hunt filled that role for years, and they just never give that to Chubb. And whether it's targets in the red zone or just targets in general. So like, I feel like from a macro angle, Ford fits into this role of a guy that this coaching staff likes, who filled in well. He wasn't a workhorse, but like he got high value touches and made a good amount of those, given the peripherals of everything of like an offense imploding, a quarterback that sucked, his own injury stuff. And so this year going into an offense that I think fits his skill set even better if he's the pass catching back, and all signs point to that. And then you have contingency on Chubb not returning to full form, or having high ass re-injury risk coming back from a dual ligament injury at 29. Like, to me, those all scream Ford as a solid pick in a range. I understand liking a guy like Charbonnet, who might have more standalone value and like talent.
Which I definitely don't think Charbonnet has more standalone value, like at all.
And he might not. I mean, you can argue like, I think Ford has more standalone value week one, but I think Charbonnet's ability to capture the whole backfield in a contingent way is more. But like, I like both of those guys, and I just kind of push back on the Ford is bad and a bad pick thing from those standpoints.
We're about to make a pick, and then yes, I will go into my soliloquy.
And I've definitely got stuff to talk about on this as well. And look, Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, this build needs this guy. This build has to have this guy.
Fuck.
Look, I mean,
he just kind of falls. He just falls to us. We have no choice here.
I don't think I've ever seen Rashad Bateman fall in a draft, but that's a me problem. Rather
Wait, you guys see him on the board? Where is he, guys? I don't see him. He's not showing up.
There's another user interface I won't mention here that I drafted a lot more Rashad Bateman because he falls like 20 picks later.
You can speak freely, Daigle.
Drafters Rashad Bateman goes like 180. It's like
sharp ADP.
And so like, yeah, I agree. And that's why, like, I think I looked at my exposure. I was like, why do I have 20%? Like, I don't even think Rashad Bateman's good at professional football. Why do I have him? But he's 180. So it's like, yeah, I guess I'll take him every time because he matches well there.
His ears are burning.
Okay, so like before we get to the next
Tom.
stuff on Ford, like let's look at this next pick, because we're sitting here with a 1-5-7-1. We do need to think about quarterback at some point, and we do need to think about tight end. Noah Fant's fair. Maybe we should have double tapped Noah Fant, Geno Smith, but
no, this build needed Rashad Bateman.
Anything else that you guys think we could do right now to add a secondary stack into this? Or
Roman Wilson also matches with us. I wish I've heard anything good about Roman Wilson rather than nothing at all. Like, no one said his name.
Well,
he's still on the team.
I did a deep dive with Zachary Kruger to find out that George Pickens, his rookie year, seemingly nothing talked about. It just seems to be an organizational and beat writer thing for rookie receivers in Pittsburgh, FYI.
It's Mark Cavalier. I know that.
We could try to push Geno around, but the Tyler Lockett drafters on the other side of us with a need at quarterback. I think we have Carr, Jawan in our back pocket. So I think receiver or running back here makes sense. Thoughts?
Carr's 190, right? 190-ish.
Yeah.
Let's stretch it to Carr. I don't mind Carr at all.
Gibson correlates with Palmer, so let's do that.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that too.
So go on, John. Fire away on Jerome Ford.
Oh no, well, Tyler already pretty much said everything, but for Jerome Ford also, wide receiver in high school, which is why his routes looked so clean last year. I would imagine he is the pass catching back. Davis, who is too deep in the weeds, so like Like, whereas Davis like doesn't want to miss out on anything. I practice the joy of missing out. I have JOMO and I love it. Like, I'm not listening to y'all's petty, not y'all's, but in general, the universe's petty training camp shit. That's not for me, man. Like, I don't care about highlights. It does nothing. It should not move the needle at all. And I don't care. So I just look past it. So take this with a grain of salt. But Davis believes that Naheem Hines could take the pass catching role from Jerome Ford. And if that's the case, then of course I'm very worried, because part of the argument of Ford getting there is that he is the pass catching back. But I still think there's meat on the bone, given that Kareem Hunt averaged 11.5 touches per game alongside Jerome Ford. Hunt's not there now. You can't tell me that, Deontay Foreman, who they literally save money, they save over $1 million against the cap if they just cut him before the active roster. You can't tell me that he's the one that steps in as a non-pass catching back and then gets targets in the first half of the season until Chubb returns. So I'm just not buying there's like another RB2 who's going to get Kareem Hunt's workload right now.
Yeah, I think the same thing just ignores like context. If we stop forgetting what's happened in the last 12 months, if we go all the way back to 12 months ago, the staff told us we like Ford a lot. We're going to use Ford as the RB2. Yeah. He gets that role. He gets injured early. He comes back. He's given that role. Chaos ensues, but he's utilized and leaned on in other ways.
Helps you win in week 17, by the way, because he exploded.
We ignore the fact, he gets touches and targets in the red zone. Those are valuable. And the Naheem Hines thing ignores that when he was brought into Buffalo, it was as a return specialist and depth. He's had his own injuries, and they've already talked about Hines being someone that's mixing in for returns. That does not sound like an RB2 that's pass catching. That sounds like a guy who's become a special teams ace when he's healthy. Like, this is just prognosticating to fit your own narrative, Davis.
Last year,
but also there's also Pierre Strong, who supposedly the team think is going to have possibly a bigger role this year.
But he might just be want to use him until their meaningless game in week 18.
Yeah. But then there's Donta Foreman, who already has the pre-existing relationship with Juice Staley from their time with the Panthers. So for me, it's more just that I'm cooling on this whole running back room as a whole. When I thought it was only going to be Ford and Donta Foreman, I could divide it up and I could say I can make use of this player at this point and this player at this point, and maybe Chubb comes back later. But if we're talking about a three-way committee and a new offense, which frankly still could be a little bit of a mess, even if it is going to play up tempo, I just struggle with it. So, yeah, I think more now I'm just easing back away from all of them.
Did we get sniped on Derek Carr?
Yeah, it appears we were.
We can tack on two very late. We can go like Fields and McCarthy if you wanted.
Actually, I think we can
go Levis and Boyd.
Levis and Boyd would work, wouldn't it? Yeah.
No, you know what? No, Daigle said we can't be afraid. And Big Dick
live a little
is we take. I mean, Wilson's getting starter snaps because of Russell Wilson's weak ass calves. So I like it. Let us move forward with boldness, because this advancement structure is hell.
Boldness enough to have Fields in the last round too.
Yes, sir.
Well, I've been drafting a lot with Colm Kelly of RotoViz, and he's been forcing me to take an awful lot of late round Justin Fields. And I got a couple of DMs from him yesterday when Justin Fields was taking snaps, and I said, my simple reply was, aren't you afraid now that Justin Fields cocks this all up and by week 10 he's on the bench and Russell Wilson is now the quarterback you need for week 17? And that was an awkward moment. But yeah, I think on this team, when you've got Lamar Jackson, if Lamar Jackson doesn't hit his ceiling and be reliable, then, you are going to need something else spectacular. So I'm good with it.
I think we've just given ourselves, I joke, I don't think we need 3 quarterbacks on this roster. I think we've just given ourselves 2 different quarterback outs late. Seems like a lot of people have their quarterbacks already settled. So I think we just grab the tight end we want here and play for the last quarterback to come back around to us. That suit everyone.
That works for me.
Sounds good.
But even if we go like naked Drake May, at least May averaged over 9 rushing points per game as a starter at North Carolina. We can get there with that.
Yeah, it's just they share bye weeks, and then you're kind of.
That's true. I forgot to look at that. Good job.
No, it's all good. We try to help.
So before we carry on in round 17, if you haven't already dropped a hashtag BDE for Big Daigle Energy into the chat, make sure you do so now to win yourself a BBM entry on us.
Oh, yeah.
So we're back on the clock. Where are we going?
Are we good with Juwan? Stacks up with
Yeah, dude,
Yep.
my May bags, like my
yes.
April and May bags have so much Jawad. And like the fact he got injured and all Nick Underhill put out was serious injury, questionable for week 1. I was like, oh no. Because like the worst thing you could do at this time is draft injured players. Like they just don't ever come back in best ball. So don't worry about it. I was really scared.
We had somebody in the chat earlier saying Juwan Johnson was back at practice.
Yeah, he did. He showed back up at practice today out of nowhere.
Yep. Oh, nice.
Jugs. Yeah, the weird thing about him and this team is that we got told a vague foot injury that would require surgery and vague speculation from the team about optimism for return. We were never told what the injury was. We were never told when the surgery was, just when it might happen. So based on that very vague prognostication of things, the fantasy doctors I trust think mild to medium severity Jones fracture. And as long as the surgery date was about when they said it was, and they wait the minimum 10 to 12 weeks of like rest and rehab, he should be like all systems go by week 1, 2, or 3, or if they're being super conservative, to come back 90+%. And the risk is that if this is the injury, that they try to rush him back sooner than that, where he could be like below 50% or less of himself given the injury. My thinking is, why do they feel any need to rush him back with Taysom being healthy early in the season? So given all of that, I'm fine taking the risk here, especially given the fact that I think we're afforded a little bit more margin making the bet on Mark Andrews early. But I would definitely love more clarity on the whole situation to have more insight to make the bet.
Well, they're going to have to rush him back early because Taysom Hill will be at running back because seemingly Dennis Allen hates every single player who isn't Taysom Hill.
Fair.
It's easier when he's not a tight end because you can just remove him from your life. No one ever drafts him as a quarterback, but as a tight end, he should be started over David Njoku like literally every week.
I hard to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, this might be his final swan song. Like, it seems like next year is finally the year where the Saints can kind of actually get out of the contract. But
it's probably the year Dennis Allen is finally done too.
It needs to happen.
They have an easy schedule. They have a fun play caller. We'll see what Derek Carr can do. But yeah, Dennis Allen is well overdue to be done here.
Everyone getting excited about Greg Dulcich finally seeing the field for the first time in 15 months. Get ready to learn Taysom Hill, Denver Broncos 2025, buddy.
Dude, he would be he would start over man. Like you pick him over Travis Kelce.
Bo Nix to Taysom Hill is a disgustingly fun thing to say, and I can't wait to draft.
Who's stopping that?
That is Taysom Hill to Troy Franklin is what you mean.
Well, I'm just thinking like we have McCarthy and Fields here. I feel really good about McCarthy given our QB1 to wide receiver 1. And even if we're worried about any bye week thing, he's looking really strong in camp. They're saying he's decisive. He's putting the ball in the money. He's making tight, big boy throws. I think we just take the shot.
Even if he only starts the last 4 weeks of the season, like we're assuming the Vikings will be out, and they can be out. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, Lamar's bye week is week 14. I think Lamar's floor and ceiling are fine. The way we've built this team, it just makes sense. We push the envelope allocation-wise, and I just don't think a round 1 quarterback in a QB-friendly system takes a long time to get in there. And we've seen Darnold have like a 3-week stretch that was fine, followed by a 3-week stretch from hell. And the start of their season is not exactly a cupcake.
The only other choice was Justin Fields. Like it had to be one of those two, and Tom is sick of drafting Justin Fields.
Anytime I don't have to make a bet on Arthur Smith, I feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like you look at what the Steelers did this offseason. Everything was about the offensive line for the running backs. And it's like, I feel comfortable making that bet on Jaylen Warren because we've seen it. I feel comfortable making that bet on Najee Harris because his price is worthwhile. But outside of that, I really struggle with the Steelers in general. And it's not just a case of me being a biased Ravens fan. Like, I've got so much Bengals. So it's but in terms of this team, if Lamar isn't good enough to carry us, then we're going to struggle anyway. But JJ McCarthy, the other reason I really like the Vikings is their secondary is really not in a great way. Like their defense looks like it could be quite poor. And the idea with JJ McCarthy is that he's going to be this conservative quarterback who is going to, we haven't really seen it from him, like unleashing hell fury, but that defense is going to put him in a lot of shootout situations, I think. And when you've got Justin Jefferson there, and by the end of the season, if you got TJ Hawkinson, possibly Jordan Addison on the field, then it just feels like it could be a lot of fun. So I'm good with this team. Tyler, could you recap it in full for us?
Absolutely. We finished with a 2-6-8-2 build, just as the prophet Daigle foretold. Lamar Jackson, JJ McCarthy, Devon Achane, Najee Harris, Zach Charbonnet, Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier, and Antonio Gibson. Super solid running back room, if I do say so ourselves. Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Christian Watson, Josh Palmer, Rashid Shaheed, Dontavian Wicks, Rashad Bateman, Roman Wilson, and at tight end, Mark Andrews, Jawan. He's back. Johnson.
Daigle, how'd you feel about it?
I feel great about it. Again, we're hoping for some help on the back end at both running back and wide receiver, but we're pretty top heavy too. So I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we talked about like wanting, there might be some volatility in Justin Jefferson with Darnold and a rookie quarterback. There might be some volatility with Adams. So we attack the position with numbers and totally on purpose adjust with running backs and quarterback tight end early to help us with that allocation. You're just thinking ahead, always five steps ahead.
Honestly, regardless of what else happens, because, that's like arguing about, that's like saying Jerome Ford was bad. Who cares? Like I play MLB DFS and I play MLB on Underdog literally every day. I play every day. It's like a part-time job for me.
Multi-sport
I can't name a single person's batting average because I don't care about actual results. I'm literally projecting. I don't give a shit about what you did in the past. I'm trying to get it right before it happens. And so all we need for this team, regardless of what happens, is JJ McCarthy to start week 14. Like if you could guarantee me JJ McCarthy starts week 14, I will take the rest of the results wherever they may fall because that's the game we're playing.
I mean, barring health, I would wager my house that the top 15 drafted quarterback in a QB-friendly team with a week 6 bye is starting by week 14.
When you put out, this is not even a 0 RB team, by the way. This is a hero RB team, which those are my favorite builds by far. But if you put out screenshots of 0 RB or hero RB, everyone's disgusted because everyone's brains can't work in pockets that fantasy football requires. Everyone tries to project for 17 games, and that's not what we're doing. We're saying, like, I just need you to score and be usable in this pocket for 2 to 4 games, and then we'll figure it out in pockets of 2 to 4 weeks. That's what fantasy football is. I'm never trying with early capital, yes, but with late capital, it's either home run swing or I need you to be usable at least at one point. And this team, I think, does have usability on the back end.
Well, I mean, what you just described was like how Amari Cooper and George Pickens, who were pretty middling to bad picks at ADP until the finals, where Amari Cooper going nuclear for 50 points in week 16 and then being hurt and not even available week 17, but leveraging you into that field. Yeah. And then same thing with Christian Watson, awful 4th round pick, but had a couple huge weeks, especially late when it mattered. And then George Pickens, awful, terrible, no good pick until the last 3 games when he just got fed and went explosive. So like, a guy's ADP doesn't matter so much as his production and when it hits. And Achane being a great example of somebody that was huge for teams in advancement, but not as powerful for the finals. Raheem Mostert, awesome advancement guy, not as powerful in the finals. But if you build your team to leverage those different time, accelerators, it's about getting lucky. And then one thing that I talked about last night with Best Ball Guy and PPR Tyler on their stream was like, and it goes into your talk about like the week 16, week 17 thing. We can plan for these things, but those are months in advance. And there's going to be a lot that changes, the calculus, changes all of that. So we can do our best now. And then the other wrinkle is that we don't control pod luck. We have no idea when the playoffs come, what pods we're going to find ourselves in. We think this is a unique team with unique correlations. And all of a sudden, 3 of these guys go off. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in a pod with everybody in our pod has these 3 same guys. We cannot control who is going to be unique.
When Kerrane won 2 years ago, like, yes, there was a canceled game, but regardless, he stacked week 17, understanding that he needed to get lucky then. And George Kittle, he didn't know the splits, right? Like from Brock Purdy, we didn't have a large sample yet. But George Kittle was the one whenever Ayuk or Debo got injured, not Ricky Pearsall, by the way. George Kittle is the one who blows up and slams it back in your face. And Kit Kareem didn't know that, but he drafted elite tight end, banking that something would happen. So it took the skill, and then you still have to have the luck once you put yourself in position with the skill.
And that's why this comment makes me laugh. It's like, this is assuming 5 months from now, Jair Alexander is still a very good player and is healthy and is playing week 17.
Zone coverage increased in every season since 2019. Imagine looking at cornerback matchups. No one cares in 2024.
Well, that's it.
That's not how football's played anymore.
I'll never really care that much about quarterbacks.
There was a time. There was absolutely a time. Shout out to Mike Clay, who got it started, and he was right at the time. But 2024, I can't even imagine caring about cornerback matchups because wide receivers and, more importantly, smart offensive coordinators like Kevin O'Connell, Brian Canahan, Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, they get their guys targets. A cornerback does not matter at all.
And it's easy to say that last year, but then flip week 1 Vikings with week 17 Vikings. If those things happen in reverse, we're all going, Justin Jefferson owns the Packers. But because one of the 2 times he played the Packers, and by the way, he was owning the Packers with Nick Mullins. Unfortunately, Nick Mullins, as someone that had Justin Jefferson in the finals last year and didn't get to watch Nick Mullins for the first half, like I don't care. The way that guys use their alpha receivers with motion, with movement, and just players being really good. Yeah, it's a moot point to try to prognosticate.
That was the playoff game from like 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe not playoffs, maybe end of year. I can't quite recall. But that was the Jalen Ramsey with the Rams matchup against Devontae Adams when he was on the Packers. And everyone didn't play Adams because he had the one-on-one matchup. And we knew Ramsey was going to shadow. And the first possession, literally, they drove down the field. They were inside the 5. They ran a pick play on Ramsey, and suddenly Adams is open. It's like, yeah. None of this stuff matters on defense. The best coordinators will get their guys the ball. It is that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's give this $25 away, and it's fitting that we have 25 entries. Remember, if you don't win this, or even if you do win this, leave a comment after the video ends. Same hashtag BDE for an entry, and we'll give another $25 away this weekend, as well as this contest, which we're giving away until the NFL season starts. $100 in cold hard cash, 12 months free membership to all our premium content, $25 voucher for our merchandise store. All you got to do, subscribe, leave comments on as many videos as you like. Let's give this money away and get somebody into BBM tonight.
I should have entered and Fugazi the money back into my own pocket.
Yeah, that's a wise point. I should have too. JRMY21. If you're watching, let us know that you've seen this and send me a DM on Twitter at NFLTstrack, or just reply to a comment on YouTube and we'll get back to you. John, before we get out of here, I mean, I know you've been a busy man all day hopping on a variety of shows, but anything in particular that you got going on over at ETR that the people need to know about?
It's just the time of the year where, as I said earlier on a different show, where trust me, I am very grateful that my DMs get populated with request to come on the show. I love that because I love joining y'all. And like in some cases, I only get to see y'all. Like I saw Tyler once last year. I only get to see y'all like literally Rich, JJ. They're 2 of my best friends. I get to see them twice a year. So I just love doing this because this is how we connect. And so beyond that, establishedrun.com. I'm currently splitting team previews with Evan Silva. We're going to jump into player tiers after that, coming very soon to you. Plus everything else that Sam Sherman, Jack Miller, Adam Levitan, everyone behind the scenes there is doing for redraft. Mike Leone, all the rankings are ready for literally every season long question you have. The rankings are up. So that's where you can get it.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been a subscriber since day one for ETR, and I won't stop subscribing anytime soon. Historical Anomalies asks, Daigle, are you doing post-game show on Underdog this year or not?
There are a couple questions going on behind the scenes that I can't answer yet. We're not. There's still some negotiations out there. So
we're gonna say
you will know historical. Yes, the moment I know, but there's a lot of discussions being had right now.
Excellent. Well, very much hope that you are doing. It was incredible. Tyler, I know you've got more drafting plans this weekend. Where are you going to be that people can see your lovely facial hair?
It's coming back. You missed the handlebar mustache, Daigle. We rocked that for 2 weeks because these sick chat rats got some likes up way too fast. So the beard's back. I think we're gonna plan to do best ball brunch this Sunday. Hang out with the fine folks. I got a lot of fun tournaments to choose from. Maybe we get a new one. I don't have any news there, but they just keep cranking them out to try to slow down BBM. So
what time is brunch?
I think last week we did 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern. Seems like a pretty good time. I usually do between like 10 and 11.
Do you have a guest?
Do you want to come on?
I may be able to get up. I don't have to leave for golf until noon Central. I think we may have time.
All right. Well, here
DM me.
Folks, we might have our first brunch guest.
Very professional, just booking it like right here live. Yeah.
No, I love this. Guys,
this is made. This is the way that Roto World let Crane know that he's going to be on a show. They just talk about it. Crane listens.
They literally tell him when he's not there during a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matthew Berry, if you're listening, drop me a DM and we'll arrange for you to come on next week.
We'll see you Sunday, Matthew Berry. Yeah, that's how it works.
Hit the range with Daigle, right?
Yeah. But otherwise, for Tyler, for myself, for John, truly appreciate everyone else in the chat. We've got loads on the channel. Go check out the video with Coach Speak Index, the video with Hayden Winks. We'll be back on Monday after the Sunday Best Ball brunch. But on Monday, we've got Kevin Tompkins, and we'll be back in the Underdog streets. Appreciate everyone for hanging out. Catch you all soon.